Welcome back to the Crackin Backs Podcast, where we delve into the forefront of medical innovation and the minds shaping the future of healthcare. Today, we're venturing into the virtual realm with Amir Bozorgzadeh, co-founder of Virtuleap, a trailblazer in leveraging VR technology to enhance cognitive development and tackle neurological disorders. Imagine a world where training your brain is as immersive and engaging as your favorite video game, and where overcoming fears and building resilience is just a headset away. Join us as we explore how Virtuleap is not just reimagining cognitive training, but revolutionizing it. Get ready to have your mind expanded.
Well, based off of the pre-show, I can't wait to talk to you, Amir, and it's such an honor to have a guy of your caliber on our show, and especially coming from Spain. So we have an international guest, and we're so excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Spencer. Based on the pre-show, I'm already so psyched to continue this conversation and explore the neurological, neuroscience, cognitive science, metaphysical works together.
It's going to be great. I want to just jump right in. So let people know you're the CEO, co-founder of a VR startup, and that's it's such a hot topic right now, and that's why we're so excited. And the name of your company is Virtuleap, which unlocks neuroscience with virtual reality. And I want to hear just from the get-go, how did this concept start using your company's name, Leap, into VR, cognitive neuroscience, and using it for cognitive neuroscience instead of just gaming?
I'm using a very deep vertigo. I was on a flight one time with my wife, and I'm literally on her lap. That's how much vertigo I have in terms of like heights and so on. And I had the opportunity around 2013, which was the latest, depends who you talk to, but the latest hype cycle or wave of VR, because VR is nothing new for a lot of people who've been paying attention since the 80s, really. But I tried an experience that used exposure therapy for fear of heights. And in one session, it had significantly done for me something that I thought was a prison cell that you just can't, you have to accept as a part of you. I realized there's certain technologies that can defy space, time, physics, and make things happen in a way that had a profound liberation to my life. So I started writing about the technology for VentureBeat and TechCrunch. I tried to become an expert of it. And in 2018, we launched a company based on that inspiration, translated into 4 years of writing about it, and just trying to figure out where exactly this technology has a critical application. Because I only think VR and augmented reality, mixed reality, all the buzzwords that you have for this, but the only critical application is when it has an healthcare application or an education application. Every other form of these immersive experiences don't really interest me. I'd rather be out in the beach or the forest. But these technologies have a superpower to help us get beyond certain restrictions and limitations.
So Amir, we were practicing before we got on the air, but I'm going to say your last name regardless of my fear of being on the air. Amir Bozorgzadeh. Did I do it?
You have a talent, and I've heard. If you go to my web summit, it's a big event in Lisbon, and you hear the host introduce me. He introduced letters that weren't there. It was amazing. If anyone wants to go to YouTube, search Web Summit, my name, and this guy, I forget who he is, and if he's watching, shame on me, man. I've heard Bozorgzadeh. No. The best one was Bozorgzadeh.
Oh,
God. No. Those are different things. But no, that's well done, and you have linguistic reliability. That's exactly how you pronounced it before the show started.
Thank you for not saying Lord Baron. You did a good job.
I will accept that too. But thank you very much.
Lord Baron.
Oh my gosh, Amir, this is great, man. So, getting back to what our original subject matter is, I would like to elaborate for the audience, Virtuleap's technology specifically and how it contributes to this cognitive development and training, which is definitely something important, especially in a generation that suffered through COVID and not being in school. And then on the far end of the spectrum, us older folks that are deteriorating.
You're not alone. And I think you're drastically not alone. I think there's a race now, an unconscious race to what I consider to be called the cognition crisis. And I think no one really is paying attention. I think people on the research side are studying things like TikTok brain. What is that? Well, by the time we find out, because the research takes so long, it's already too late, where the quicksand has taken us. It's where these TikTok social media mechanisms have been widespread across every single social media platform, where people, I think, under their 20s can barely pay attention beyond a 3-minute reel. Forget Netflix. That's too 30-minute episodes. Forget watching The English Patient for 2+ hours, right? We're past those times. And I think the core of it is our attention abilities, our distractibility is going high. And with distractibility going high, our attention muscles going low, it has a deep correlation with depression and mental health disorders in inverse directions. And so these technologies that may have been a luxury, let's say 5 years ago even, now I think you have to use the forefront of emerging technologies like virtual reality to engage us in such a way so that we're aware of what's happening to ourselves cognitively in our cognitive landscape, to see not just physical strength but cognitive strength. And cognitive strength allows us to have an immune system against mental health disorders. So in a nutshell, that's what we're trying to do. We're using VR, a little bit of big data, because VR and big data are very, very synonymous in my books, to help us counteract what is happening.
Dr. Terry, I love this guy. He is going to introduce a different realm of working against what these young brains and even as some of us old brains are dealing with. So let me ask you for those people that are listening that don't think that social media has had an effect on us, go to the movies and look at how they now film trailers to movies. It's constantly changing scenery every second, whereas like 30, 40 years ago, you would see, a scene that would last for, several seconds, right? So we're getting fooled all over the place, and it's changing the way we think. I have a couple questions for you. How does the VR, how is your approach going to remap our brain?
I think one thing, a misunderstanding or just something we don't think about, is that physicality is also cognitive. Motor control skills, spatial orientation, spatial audio awareness. These are cognitive abilities. They're not just physical. Mind and body aren't such separate things. That ancient sage on the top of the hill who said that thousands of years ago, and when we see it in Disney films, it's true. And I think modern neuroscience keeps on getting closer to that we know that there's some activity in the gut that has a cognitive value. There's things in the heart that have cognitive value. There's things in the head, and they all correlate. And virtual reality is an embodied digital format that engages my autonomic nervous system, my vestibular balance system, my proprioception into believing that the experience is real. Like when I go on if I did a crime, and I get a lie detector test, there's some part of me nonverbal that tells the truth. Well, what the hell is that? There's aspects of us that's nonverbal in a VR environment. And the only reason it's critical is how it engages those nonverbal circuitries, how it engages on our experiential, our emotional sides, all in tandem if it's well designed and well tested and run by people who have scientific backgrounds who take that into account, because you can always have a lot of missing the mark in any medium. But if you do it right with VR, it can have an order of magnitude greater impact in any particular aim, educational and healthcare.
Can you give me an example of what I would see and hear that would actually have that help in changing?
So, our first product, flagship product, is called Enhanced VR. It's actually free to download on all the app stores. It's essentially a library of 15 cognitive exercises that span across 22 cognitive functions. So when you play these 15 games, you get a landscape of how you are strong and weak across these different areas, like, episodic memory, or, like I said, motor control skills, all that range. One game will be based, and typically all the games will be translations of neurological assessment tools. They're translated from tools that have been used by the neuroscience community for, let's say, decades. Some of them, like the MBAC test. And then you take that into VR and you make it into a game where you're making pizza, or delivering orders, or another one where you're transporting a ship from A, B, C, D navigational spots, or another one that is a representation of our favorite whack-a-mole kind of arcade sort of game. Each one of them is a specific design game that is a collaboration between a neuroscientist on our team and a game designer that then brings it into virtual reality environments. The reason that engages all those things is because you're always using your limbs. You're always in an environment where your balance and the movement between back and forth and the exercise is not limited to just your thumbs and fingers typing on a screen, right? You pick up a glass of Pepsi the same way in VR as you do in the real world. You're engaging and involving your psychomotor at the side of you.
Amir, you said something about that. I heard you mention an audio component. Now we're all talking visual right now. What and maybe kinesthetic or spatial stuff. What about audio?
The thing about audio is we even have some games. Well, one specifically that is a spatial audio game where the robot basically disappears into invisible kind of environment and moves around, and then it makes noises, and then you have to basically locate it based on the location. So we even have spatial audio oriented games, but one aspect of it is, and we had someone very early working on essentially not binaural beats, but a type of phase locking music that even is playing in the background. There's nature publications on I think, and I'm a big believer on music being something that can add to the experience. But really, it's a lot of things. We try to use it as an input that is the basis of even some game mechanisms.
Oh my gosh, I love it. You actually just reminded me. There was a phenomenon that was research done called the Mozart effect that would help with spatial temporal reasoning, and I just imagined it. When you said music, that's the first thing I thought of. There's some research on it. It was somewhat disputable and irreproducible, but they found that if I think two pianos in D minor concerto, whatever it is, and they said that if that it could actually improve spatial temporal reasoning by a IQ of 8 to 9 points or something like that. It was so. Man, you're on track. That would be pretty cool to add.
It's really about like what makes the human condition interact with its environment, and going whatever medium we want to use. Let's try to engage every single aspect of them at the same time in tandem, not surgically remove the whole thing. Don't make it. I think it's hard for people to believe that these screen devices in our pockets are not going to last forever. But that's really, really silly. It's a matter of time, and it's what I consider an intermediary technology. It's not intuitive to the human UX, the native UX. Here's a real funny example, and I wrote about it and I covered it in lots of ways in the media, where people thought older people, let's say people in nursing homes or senior living communities, just don't like VR. They won't like it because, they're Luddites. Of course they don't like. It was the exact opposite. They're the earliest adopters of virtual reality across hundreds and hundreds of communities in the U.S. particularly. It's a top place, but also Europe, Asia. But in the U.S., it's one of the top, stickiest applications of VR. And if we had done more to stop saying projecting that, oh no, we know what they want. No. I did a pilot in Kyoto, Japan with people in their 90s, and it had a quality of life difference. We did an NIH SBIR grant study in the US that just finished a few months ago with a company called MapHabit, great team, very much focused on a population of people with Alzheimer's. And again, positive effect and quality of life, even when there's problems with interacting or completing or anything like that. Still, we just, any population where they say it doesn't work that way, I think every 50 years we realize how stupid we are, and
100%. Hey, I got a quick layman's question. You see the VRs when they first started coming out with different games, and I'm talking about the headset. Is the headset as important because now the Medic wanted to come out with a new headset that was more advanced? Is it the headset that can your games work with any headset? Is the headset critical, or is it more the programming that's going through the headset that's more critical?
Now, the Quest 3, this latest device, what's really awesome about it is that it's much lighter. Okay, aside from better visuals, better resolution, it keeps on removing any issues, even if you're the most horrible VR developer in the world, the ones I hate to even rub shoulders with, and I see that they don't care about things that just best practices. We work with hospitals. We go back and forth in testing, making sure we do not have discomfort. We maximize accessibility. We make sure, does it have colorblind settings? Does it have, all these things are important, especially for us as a healthcare sort of VR company. But the more you get advanced on it, the less you can even cause nausea, because you're getting better and better resolution. You're doing all these things that the headsets can protect even horrible developers from screwing up the experience. But this device is way lighter. So, I don't want people in VR headsets for longer than 20 minutes. I make experiences of less than 15 minutes, ideally 10 minutes. Get the hell back in the real world. I don't want you to make friends in VR. Like, if you have issues with making friends in the real world, VR can help you with that. Get back into the real world. Engage with the actual fragrances. Don't make digital fragrances. No, like, I'm not that guy, and I'm not even though you guys are really cool and you like me, which is weird. I am not popular in my industry because I am not all over the place. Let's go and socialize in VR. Let's go to the bar in VR. What the hell are you guys talking about? But this Quest 3, better resolution, better everything. Got hand gesture can now be the main mode. Forget the controllers. That is now here. And of course, I think it's like 30% at least lighter. But to answer your other question, we design using a game engine called Unity. Unity is supported by all the headsets. We try to be agnostic and support any of the major ones. If it's not major, like really well used and asked for, we try to avoid it because it's just extra work. The Apple headset that just came out, it's a very big moment. We're working to create a new version for theirs. But currently we support all of the major headsets.
Interesting. So
very cool. By the way, Amir, I like you because my second son is a total nerd tech cybersecurity guy. So I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because my son has a VR set, and we were climbing a mountain one time, and I'm a big outdoor mountain climber, and I said, I don't want to climb a mountain here. I want to get outside. So I appreciate what you just said, using it for what it's good for. All right, so I have a question, and overcoming fear. It involves a exposure to stressors and the fear object or situation, and managing that stress response in a way that leads to resilience, right? So the process can simulate production of, as we know, neurochemicals like dopamine and norepinephrine, which are associated with the reward of alertness, right? So the problem is a lot of people, after a certain age, when you go, okay, we're gonna try and open up some pathways in your brain by exposing you to fear, and like even the movie or the show on Netflix, Limitless, where they had Hemsworth walking on the plank or walking on a high thing. Well, a lot of people can't do that. They don't have the money. They don't have the ways of getting it. in my head, I'm like, well, can't we use VR in an office setting to simulate that exact same thing and get those results? Is one of the goals of this company to be able to bring fearful situations into a controlled environment?
It's it's like the going up the pyramid of the lower kinds of cognitive training we can do. One aspect of not answering your question yet, but one aspect of what I've noticed with cognitive landscapes in people is that their weaknesses, they try to avoid them. We try as society. We think we like to develop our weaknesses, but my experience is the complete opposite. We like to, for example, you're good at something. Like, let's say you're playing some sport, then other people get better, you become less better. I've noticed in my experience that people get less interested in something the less they are superior in it or have some kind of character overdevelopment in it. When I used to play FIFA with my friends in college, my friend would love playing it when he kicked our butts. But then when I started getting better, other people got better, he would move on to something else. In our games, I noticed that people, we have like 15 games, that people I avoid, even me, the games that relate to my lowest scores in my cognitive, because when you see your cognitive scores, it paints a picture of you in like a radar chart. You see where your chicken legs are in the gym, cognitively speaking, and you hate looking at your chicken legs. So in the VR, I've noticed that you avoid what you're bad at, and you try to accentuate an overdevelopment, Tiger Woods style. Let's become like over character. Doesn't matter that in personal life he's a complete disaster. No. He's amazing at this one damn thing. So I'm going to develop my one damn thing, and I'm going to become successful because of that. We don't want wholesomeness. We pretend we do. We don't want self-development. We just want success in a particular like superpower. And it's a really bad way. It's not conducive to mental health, in my opinion. And it relates to fear, I think, partially in some of these domains, because it reminds people of their weaknesses. In other areas, we're talking about more thresholds of, let's say, jumping into very unknown circumstances, and then that causes, like, let's say, you're operating with muscles that you just don't have. You don't have memory banks with records of this experience, and so it's the unknown. So it kind of, it's like the pyramid to me. You start building and knowing more about your weakness areas, but then you keep on going higher, and then there's the real places, the good stuff, the sweet spots of real unknown territory where those kind of chemicals start to jump in, where you would never take yourself by yourself. You would need to be dared, or in the setting of VR, safe in home. Maybe there's ways to do that, because VR is a safe way to treat someone's phobia of people, agoraphobia. I don't want to be in a place with too many people, but in VR, I can go into a simulation and start in an empty room and bring it to level 1. There's 2 people there. Okay, I'm okay with this. Level 3, okay, well, there's more people. At level 5, keep on exposure therapy, safe, in your control. The thing about I think a lot of these fear mechanisms is that it's also based on our clinging to control.
Mm-hmm.
Amir, I love the idea of utilizing VR to overcome phobias, and it's in a controlled and safe environment. And it's fascinating. My girl has a massive fear of spiders. Like, she would rather burn in a fire or something, than see a spider anywhere, even a picture. So how would you approach an environment like that, or a situation like that?
So I wrote an article exactly about one gentleman who made a spider VR simulation. And so it starts off, and he made it within 2 hours, by the way. And then why did he create it? Because he wanted to get rid of his own fear of spiders. Can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but he's a very big person now at Y Combinator, that big startup accelerator. He runs one of their VC funds. But I covered his early idea, where he, after 2 hours of using his own created solution for overcoming his fear of spiders, he got a tarantula and put it on his head.
Whoa.
Now that sounds like hype, but I'm telling you, I believe the guy. He was honest. I think he said the truth. And how do you do it? You start off with a pixel. Level 1 is just a pixel moving. I can handle a pixel. Then you got 3-4 pixels. It's starting to turn into something that looks like a creature. I can handle this weird digitized whatever this thing is. And then love will keep on to, now it's getting, get all the way to the fur, and the little moving. I mean, it's just about control, safety, and modulation, and leveling up, and dealing with it, and no BS in your head telling you I'm, just like my fear of heights. We just have to learn how to use our neuroplasticity in our favor with the help of these cool technologies.
Karen, I see a birthday present coming your way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Karen will either kill me or love me for this. Amir, what is time banking?
Ooh, well, this is probably 15 or so years ago. I think 2010, 2011. So maybe, and it was I was living in Dubai. I'm a Canadian. I grew up in Canada, but I spent a stint of time in Dubai, a very, very crazy period, where I met a lot of people from all around the world. And at that time, TED TED lectures were before TEDx. Really, I think TEDx was the death of TED. But TED was like, anthropologist goes 20 years in the forest and then comes back and gives you a 20-minute, distillation of it. And you're like, wow, Now they're like, they learn something at a coffee break and they bring it up in TEDx. But I participated in one of these events, and I met some really cool people. We went, what are the challenges of a place like Dubai? Social cohesion is one. And I had been studying a system, platform that had been popularized in the US and UK, where people would share, each other's talents in exchange for a communal token currency of time called time banking, or time in Dubai, time dirhams. So 1 hour of me helping you or your kid, teaching them guitar because I'm good at guitar, earns me in the time bank $1 time that I can have someone perhaps help me with another issue. So it was about communal cohesion and social cohesion and social fabric in a place like Dubai.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, moving off of that, back to like that multi-sensory experience. But so spatial orientation, motor skills, things like that. How does this VR immersive experience, what is it that's so different about that than just, 2D computer screen based apps?
When you get the scores that you get, after you play the 15 games, we have this new report that's coming out where you get a report that gives you your strengths and weaknesses across those 22 categories, and then tells you how that relates to maybe, let's say job profiles that were more suited for, or areas that that you might in daily life activities, remembering your grocery list, like things in life. What do these relate to? And giving you kind of an understanding of your cognitive fingerprint. Now, that cognitive fingerprint to me is not complete unless it does include within our scoring spatialized, physical, motor skills as part of that scoring. It doesn't just, in the 2D world, you only have the traditional cognitive categories: memory, information processing, problem solving. Great. But I don't think that's the full puzzle. I don't think that's, even our stuff is not the full puzzle, because we have to go into areas that are qualitative, emotional, those kind of things. We're very much more like the gym for the mind. We go very mechanical and quantitative. You have your memory workouts here in this space. You got your physical workouts on that space. But there's a universal scoring system that takes all of your activities and gives you more or less an IQ score that we call the Enhanced Performance Index. So I suppose it's all about what is more whole, what is the more wholesome, and how do we keep on using technologies and methods for understanding ourselves that encapsulates more of us. I would say it's like 2 dimensions of understanding versus 3 dimensions of understanding, and maybe one day we'll even talk about other areas. But it's, is it the full picture or not? Is it less of the full picture? What are we missing out? I think VR is just more full. I think on the engagement side, we're talking about it's about 6 1,000 worldwide studies always showing that retention, adherence, all of these things are always boosted because the novelty is higher, because it's engaging more of us. So more wholesome capture and more engagement.
Thank you for that answer. So you provide a grading system so the layperson can actually get feedback on their performance, correct? Is there application in being that Dr. Terry and I are doctors, we see patients all the time. Is there an application that we would be able to use in the office for, we deal with a lot of athletes, so you can launch from there. Would there be application in that perspective?
Well, we found with one early study last year that we have a therapeutic benefit when it came to university students with ADHD. We believe there's a therapeutic effect when you have a cognitive deficit. But for a general healthy individual, it's more of a tracking tool. You get to see in this report and you get to understand that when I, drank too many drinks last night, maybe my scores today dropped by a significant amount. Maybe a surgeon going into, into an operating room should maybe play the games and see if he's operating perfectly at norms before they go in. That's enhanced VR. That's our main tool. It's kind of like touching base with, am I at my norms? That's for the general population. Whereas for ADHD, for TikTok brain, for people who had traumatic brain injury or recuperating, people who had a concussion, people who do chemotherapy, 70% have brain fog. I had COVID again last month, and for the first time I had long COVID. And I couldn't remember my house number. So cognitive disorders, conditions where you have a deficit, this can be a therapeutic. I really, really wholeheartedly believe. The second thing is we have a second tool that we were been co-developing with Roche, the pharma company, where it's a screening tool for mild cognitive impairment and perhaps even subjective cognitive decline. But that's very much more for clinics, for neurologists, and we're going to be releasing that by probably the summer of this year as a second tool.
So you could use it for testing condition.
Yes, that's
okay. Fantastic.
Very much more in the medical setting, clinic setting, whereas enhanced VR can be used therapeutically or by the general population.
So I'm already seeing a use for when somebody gets hurt, the fear of the re-injury or the change of patterns, used like for ACLs or for hips or something like that, joint replacements. You could use this to restore that cognitive connection, can't you?
It's we worked with St. Joseph's University and Rutgers on some preliminary applications and rehabilitation and in the area of sports. We work with VA healthcare system in San Francisco, but they're alcohol addiction group where even alcohol addiction, PTSD, these things can cause it. Can we use it as a recuperative? For rehabilitation, from stroke rehabilitation, for any type of physical injury, a significant one, I wholeheartedly believe there's always a cognitive parallel to it. If we're injured physically, there's a cognitive relationship to that, and vice versa in other weird ways. I think that's what we really have to think, is that cognition is not something we should take for granted. And I think we do take it for granted at our peril as a society. And if I can think, what do people think about 150 years from now? I hope to gosh that it is one of knowing body and mind are always related. And if there is something to recuperate in any dimension of us, cognition should be a part of the package.
Amir, take illnesses like dementia and Alzheimer's. Would you be able to detect, early onset? And the second part of that question is, would VR be able to help with rehab or therapeutic benefits?
Now that the Alzheimer's is such a riddle, it's And it's a question of what's before Alzheimer's and what's before even that. And so that's when we say when you've been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, you don't have Alzheimer's, but you have MCI. That's not a good thing. It's not something you can just veer away from when you have MCI. So what is pre-MCI? What's before mild cognitive impairment? So we say subjective cognitive decline. You start joking with your friends, I can't remember this as well as usual or whatever. In Japan, it's funny. Anyone who's employed, more or less, 80% of the population, they do cognitive screeners every year. It's just part of their society. We don't do nothing in Canada and stuff. It's just like, we should be, and because we do nothing, we make it into a taboo. No, I do not want to go in an MRI machine. That's how we see it. We see it with the fright, the same fear as an arachnoid, and it keeps us from ever freaking checking out our like we have gyms everywhere glorifying the physical body. We just need like a little bit of stuff that we can screen and monitor and measure our cognitive side. So I think Alzheimer's, the solution, not so much is treating it as it is when it happens. God forbid anyone has this horrible illness, and there's plenty of pharmacological kind of initiatives to treat that. I think we're more about longevity. We're more about creating this philosophy of giving a crap about your cognitive state and understanding yourself, and maybe we can spot it as it's starting to happen in the most subtle ways, because VR captures in the exact same way, an order of magnitude more data than any other solution. We capture about 250,000 data points every 3 minutes. That is a combination of the cognitive data from the games and the physical postural data, gesticulation of the arms data. We're collecting all of it potentially, and like there's an Alzheimer's biomarker that I read in a paper I think 6 months ago, where they could detect it as a biomarker of your likeliness for Alzheimer's based on your postural alignment of your spine. We even have physiological sensors built into some of the headsets. MIT did a study last August with us, 2 Augusts ago with us, where they took physiological sensors like pupil dilation tracking and heart rate variability, and we have an AI learning algorithm that knows your cognitive load in real time. So it knows if you're focused or not. So you got 3 dimensions: physiological, psychological, physical, postural, gesticulation, all of this in one system. The data, I believe, is where the predictive powers will be. Sorry for the monologue.
Fucking brilliant.
Oh, please.
You guys do this to me. It's your fault. It's your fault. You get me excited at 5 p.m. my time.
I get goosebumps, man.
Lord Barron is on fire.
Hey, let me...
Lord Barron is on fire. Wow, that's like a slogan or something. They copyright that. I'm gonna copyright that. Lord Barron is on fire.
Amir, I actually have a suggestion that may solve a lot of your challenges when approaching companies or people with the interest in identifying Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, and all that. What I noticed, I worked for the Miami Dolphins for many years as their chiropractor, and I took 15 months of mild traumatic brain injury course. And what I was so excited and equipped with to identify my patients, current and former NFL players, with the potential for concussion and how we could fit. So my conversation was always, hey, let me find out if your concussions have had an effect on you. They didn't want to know. They didn't want to know, right?
It's so obvious, yeah.
All right.
It sucks.
So I completely changed my conversation, and I got 100% compliance when I said, hey, let's strengthen your brain and find out, when we test your muscles of the shoulder and we find out one of your rotator cuff muscles are weak, let's strengthen it. I could find out some areas of the brain that we can strengthen. Suddenly everybody's like, okay, let's do it.
Right. That's a key point, Lord Barron.
Yep.
Sorry.
Amir, you're killing me for the rest of the year.
Oh yeah. I'm signing in as Lord Barron from now on. Okay.
Isn't that so psychologically important, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's too bad that's the case. We have to. It's like Mary Poppins. We got to put some sugar in that medicine till they got the medicine down, right? We gotta go. How can we trick a person to eat that freaking apple instead of the Snickers bar? Yeah. Right? We gotta wrap it. We have to wrap the apple up in Snickers packaging.
Yeah,
you're right.
That was great. I understand your organization that Virtuleap works with organizations like AARP, for those who aren't of the age, American Association for Retired Persons. They've been hitting me up since I was 40, and I'm in denial that I want to be a member. And Pacific Brain Health Center, I believe. Do these collaborations, where would you be at with them and some of the research and development efforts?
Now, we always work with my favorite people in the world are researchers, healthcare-oriented researchers, like working with institutes here in Europe as well in the U.S. for therapeutic areas like ADHD or autism or TBI. In case of like AARP, we actually collaborated in putting our games in one of their applications. That they had a VR application catering to their members, and so we participated by putting up a version of our software in that world. So it was more of a commercial relationship. If anyone from the AARP is listening, we should be doing research side. But they're such a big organization. I don't know what they're up to. Sometimes the bigger the organization, the harder you can navigate. For example, some pharma companies, some people they do VR, but they don't even know each other in the same organization. So we work with some of these big ones, but my favorites are just small academic institutional teams where they want to do research, and we collaborate with them as a technology provider. We typically go and apply for grants, public grants, and then do some rock and roll, some research.
Wow, that's great. What about working with post-traumatic, PTSD patients?
There's a person I need to introduce you to. He's our scientific advisor and the coolest dude in the universe as far as I'm concerned. His name is Albert Skip Rizzo, so we call him Skip. He has been doing VR for healthcare applications like PTSD, which is one of his big areas. He's in LA, and since the 90s, he's been doing these applications. And PTSD relates to potential projects we would do with the Navy SEALs that we're currently trialing the solution with. VA healthcare system, the biggest healthcare system as far as I know in the world. Central is PTSD and its relationship to bad lifestyle factors that in turn cause a really high risk factor towards cognitive impairment and cognitive deterioration. So PTSD is one of those big things. It's like the foundation for really bad things to happen if we don't start treating it. Whether it's using VR solutions to, reproduce those environments, which Skip has been involved in, recreate the environment that the trauma initially happened in VR, and then make it so matching that environment that person can re-enter that world and then get their control back. Right. So that's the way VR is being used. And that's actually quite not very recent, but continuously re-evolved. And I think bringing Skip on your show will be a hell of a ride for beautiful. Everyone.
It's almost like what they're using psychedelics for. They're trying to get to using psychedelics so you see the trauma, but you have no association with the trauma. So now you're using VR for almost the same type of thing. Is that am I hearing that correctly or no?
Absolutely, you're so right. Psychedelics it's such a Pandora's box, I think, in terms of some people that I've met have used it in such a perfect way. Other people can use it and I think it's a double-edged sword. Whatever's effective in this way is always a double-edged sword. I think VR can create a trauma just as bad as it can cure one as well. That there's a TV show I watched called Altered Carbon, where they use VR as a torture device. So you want to cure your fear of spiders? Well, I can create one. You're not afraid of spiders? Well, just give me some time. Jump into the Matrix. I'll give you the fear of God.
Yeah. What about SCI? Have you ever done anything with spinal cord injuries where you can help with them, or we've had some guests that have done amazing things, told I'll never walk again, and they create new pathways. Can VR help with something like that? Have you ever seen anything?
It's so much about in the beginning when we were started out, we have about 16 people right now. 2 years ago, let's say we're just 5 people. It's an Oliver Twist story. You go out and you go, hey, please, researcher, would you like to partner? You try to, because they have so many other opportunities, things to do. We just haven't had a chance to even touch upon that therapeutic area. It's more about the stars aligning. It really is serendipity. Me messaging people from because of their emails are provided on their publications, peer-reviewed publications, and then boom, the stars align because I reached out. It's really no, we haven't. But what a amazing area to apply it to. I have so much enthusiasm about that kind. What you're talking about is that it's not just a arrow that goes from physicality to cognitive. It's also the opposite way. And I think we should use these tools in that way too, but not our tool by itself. It's us in combination with things. Sometimes we can pair up with traditional treatments or other experimental treatments that are more, let's say, have more evidence to have an effect for those types of areas. But we can serve as a piggyback and that data side of things. We can substantiate the evolution of the rehabilitation of that individual.
You mentioned earlier about TikTok brain. Can you briefly explain to our audience TikTok brain? But more importantly, my question has to do with the evolution of dealing with the results and how VR can transition you back to a normal brain or whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah. I mean, is there such a thing?
Brain.
Pre-TikTok brain. Or, it all comes down to our sustained attention skills. Can we focus on one thing, and when an associative thought appears in our head, do we just run after that little rabbit that just appeared in our head? I'm focusing on a problem. I need 10 minutes to focus on this problem. Will I be able to focus beyond 30 seconds is the question. Well, 10 years ago, were people able to, generally speaking, in a very specific task, can they focus on one thing and keep their attention oriented to that and not be vulnerable to any passing distraction to take all their attention? Multitasking, from my point of view, is glorified in lots of ways. I think it can be good, but in general, what I consider most precious, cognitively speaking, that at the center of our mental health is our ability to focus and concentrate firmly. And what these very clever mechanisms, I don't want to bring up the word China here, but I from what I understand, how TikTok is deployed in China is not how it's deployed in the US. And, the lawmakers are talking about data privacy and stuff. I would call this damn thing a cognitive virus because they don't deploy it in the same way. They have different safeguards with how they use it. But I won't go into that conspiracy world, but this thing that got popularized, it's so addictive because it's all about funny, short spikes of engagement based on silliness often, right? Based on very superficial silliness at 30 seconds a pop, maybe less, and just using one little gesture to pop up a new thing. Am I not engaged enough? Are you not making me laugh? Am I not is it not silly enough? Boom, boom. And it trains your neuroplasticity in such a way that it deteriorates your ability to sustain your attention skills. It's a subversion. It is something that has now been spread along every social media mechanism because it's so effective in getting people to pay attention to small things and take your eye attention, take your engagement, take your attention very easily. And as a society, I believe we are really deteriorating our attention skills, and that is going to cause huge spikes of depression. I believe in the next 5 years, it won't be a question of who has ADHD, it will be who doesn't.
My close friend, Dr. Mike Bagnell, he is a functional neurologist. He's a chiropractor with a extra set of postgraduate certifications in functional neurology, which is absolutely fascinating. And what he shared during a lecture not a couple years ago was that the saccadic movements, where your eyes go up, stimulates an area of a brain differently than side to side and downward movements. So they really got you going to elicit dopamine responses and things like that, not just from what's coming up visually and the content, but also the physical pattern of going upwards. So
they got us. They got us. I was injured not that long ago, and I was kind of recovering on bed a little bit longer than I would ever want to, and a little bit of depressed because I can't do my usual routines, right? Go out and get some fresh air. And I started for the first time doing way more swiping than I usually do. And man, the only reason I sound so charged about this and a little bit aggravated is because I'm what was that commercials for Rogaine? It's like, I'm not just the president. I'm also the top user. I've seen my attention skills, my sustained attention skills drop from this thing. The bastards got me too. It's not me being patronizing and condescending on other people. It's like, let's get the hell out of this shithole of a situation we've gotten ourselves in. We gotta start using technology to dig ourselves out.
Yeah. It's whether we realize it or not, and this is not a conspiracy, this is actual truth. Lobbyists for some of the drug companies that provide for the ADHD medications like Adderall and such, suddenly came up with a reason why everyone should take Adderall. If you have ADD or have trouble focusing. Well, we got it on both ends, from the pharmaceutical companies, the government, and now, China or whatever, TikTok.
That's scary. That's really
100%.
Dystopia. That's dystopia.
100%.
Yeah, they've changed the parameters on the prescribing habits for ADHD. So if you got a friend that just goes, oh my gosh, shiny objects, I can't focus. Oh, well, you need it, Adderall or something like that. And not to mention that the creator of Adderall even came up with the name Adderall, ad for all, ADD, attention deficit disorder for all, Adderall.
You just gave me some goosebumps.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like a Netflix special in about 7 years will be showing about how that went wrong. And we have to watch it first happen before we can,
So what you are doing is extremely important.
Amir, just on that note, what he just said, what's your vision? What's your solution?
I think, these kind of solutions aren't the final outcome. They're hopefully tools that will make people more conscious about things that they're not conscious of. I think ignorance is often, not seeing something is half the battle. And when you're conscious of something, you have, there's certain processes that can only happen in the absence of light. Chemical processes in the world of biology and chemistry, it's the same thing psychologically. Right. The more we're aware of, the less things can happen in the darkness because of us just not being aware of them. And I think that this kind of technology will add that. I hope schools and organizations use technologies like ours as a gym for the mind, and they think about what is their chicken legs, cognitively speaking, and they try to understand those areas and how it affects the way they are, why they're good at the things that they're good at. And maybe people will start working on those chicken legs and becoming more wholesome rather than trying to overdevelop their strengths constantly as a society. We try to just become, more developed in our weaker spots.
That's fantastic. All right. We are entering one of our favorite times. We're coming into the end of our supercharged discussion, but we want to do our traditional rapid fire questions with you that have maybe nothing to do with what the original show is about, but it's about you, Amir. So if you're ready with some brief answers to questions about you, let me know. Give me the thumbs up. You ready?
Thumbs up.
All right, my man. Rapid fire question number 1. Your favorite game that you use to relax?
Relax. The hell?
Do you realize that that's the first time he's delayed in answering a question?
Emphatically, relax.
Relax. Is there such a thing? Oh my God.
Okay, well, I used to play the game where you make all the dots and then you would connect them together on a paper. That was fairly relaxing.
Fairly relaxing.
What's it like being married to you, man?
It's not good. It's not good. It's not good. It's Chihuahua in the house. It's gonna explode. If you don't take it for a walk.
Question number 2. Best tip to find the creativity that allows you to create new concepts.
I love spider webs. The connecting, not spider webs in that way. Like memory, like idea webs. What were they called? Gosh, I can't remember right now. It's at that time of the hour where basically whenever I want to connect the dots of things in my head, I put in an idea and then I associate what did that connect it to? What is that connected to? What did that connect it to? Kind of a diagrammatic. Mind maps. That's what it is. Not a spider web. It was the spider arachnoid thing we talked about, but it looks like one kind of.
Mind maps are great. That's great. All right, question number 3. If you could go back in time and meet one person, who would it be and why?
So I'm a real geek about this early Russian philosopher, mathematician called Peter Uspensky. I used to love ideas about the fourth dimension and higher mathematics. I know this sounds so geeky.
I think I love it.
But I would love. I've been studying for 20 years, and I would love to go see my, intellectual hero.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Question number 4. Where do you see the use of VR in 5 years from now?
I really do think that we will have a virtual reality that is created spontaneously once AI gets running properly. Being able to tailor experiences to overcome anything you want. I think you can just figuratively ask for it, like the way ChatGPT just answers you with text. I think in VR you'll be able to say something and it can spontaneously create in VR that situation. So I have a presentation to do to 1,000 people. Boom, go create an environment. Give me 1,000 people. Boom, created right in front of you. Standing up there and rehearsing in a stage like that. I think it's going to be a genie out of the lamp that will be fantastic for all of us.
Goosebumps. That just got me fired up. Okay, last question. Favorite place in Spain that everyone should see in reality?
Oh yeah, I might be a stalker to anyone who tries to create a virtual Spain, and make their life hell. So my family is, from my wife's side, is in Mallorca. It's this gorgeous island just in the Mediterranean Sea. It is a place full of like the most diverse towns and the most beautiful beaches, the best of which you have to walk like 15, 20 minutes off the beaten track to get to. I think it is definitely worth everyone's bucket list.
Beautiful. Amir, thank you so much. To wrap it up, I want to give you an opportunity to mention anything that you would like. The floor is yours. If there's something you want to close with and make some suggestions to inspire people, go for it.
Yeah. VR and AR, all these technologies, they're not boogeyman. They have special abilities. There's people in the sector like me who don't believe in using them all the time. There's really cool applications. I know everyone will find them sooner or later. I'm not really looking for anything for myself. If you're interested in connecting, LinkedIn, I'm a power user for I think over 20 years on that thing. So I will add you, and if you have any questions, I can answer it. And my favorite thing is if you're a researcher who wants to just do research with us. I just want to hang out with researchers all the time. They help me detox from talking to too many investors. So that's my relaxing thing, hanging out with academics.
Oh, Amir Bozorgzadeh, you were fantastic.
Lord Barron, always a pleasure.
Fantastic, buddy. I so appreciate your time.
Oh, hi, Dr. Terry.
No, I'm not a lord yet. I'm a scribe. Thank you, Amir. With all my heart, you were amazing. So thank you for the advice and everything you've done.
Thank you for the interest in having me on board. You are, I won't tell any other podcast host, but you're my favorite.
All right. Yeah, man. Thanks, Amir.
Truly.
We appreciate it. And we'll look forward to having your scientist on.
Yes, Skip Rizzo, you're going to adore him. It's going to be epic, but maybe you want to do other things non-VR and then jump back to VR. It's ready whenever you want to. You had me at hello.
Yeah. Thank you.
That laugh is contagious, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin Backs Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Crackin Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.